Y'all know what time it is. We back at it again. Two-man weaving this thing. Drew Stevens, Josh M. Hicks. This is BULLdozed coming your way. Represent the bigs. All things Bulls and Bulls. We got some actual positive news this week. Alex Caruso named all NBA first team defense came out today as we are recording this episode. He now joins Jaren Jackson Jr., Drew Holiday, Brooke Lopez, and Evan Mobley to fill out the rest of the all defensive team, first team. And the second NBA all defensive team consists of Derek White, Draymond Green, OG Anunoby, Dylan Brooks, and Bam Adebayo. I must admit, even though we know Alex Caruso is a great defender and a spark plug from the defensive standpoint that the Bulls desperately need on an everyday in game and night basis. I didn't expect him to win this first defensive team. I really didn't. I thought it really was because of the fact that, quite frankly, he did miss a lot of time this season due to injury. And some of those games he, didn't necessarily start in. So I didn't think that he was going to be an automatic lock-in. Maybe for a defensive team, maybe, yeah. But first team, I was like, I don't know. That he might have missed his mark this year. But he did. He made the team. Drew, when you first saw the news of the NBA breaking these defensive teams and you saw Alex Caruso's name on it, what went through your mind?
I think, like you, I was surprised that he was able to get a first team nod. I thought that he was a lock for the second team. But I didn't think he would get a first team designation. So that was cool for him. I know that's something that he spoke about wanting to get. He knows the hard work that he puts in and the effort that he gives on defense night in and night out. Us as observers, as fans of this game, we can see the effort that he gives every game and what he means to the Bulls just in terms of his activity, the way he communicates on the court, his willingness to guard up and down, the positional chain. Like he's the MVP of the defense for sure. I don't think there's any question about that. It's funny though, you said that, we both said that we weren't sure if he would get a first team nod, but as you know, they break this thing down by positions. Drew Holiday had 192 total points. He led all guards in that respect. Caruso was at 125. He was second. The next closest guard to him was Derek White, who got 99 points. So clearly, Alex Caruso's reputation is kind of preceding him, and he's known, I think, now around the league. If he wasn't before, I think a lot of us saw these same things last season, but unfortunately, he was really sidelined a lot last year compared to this season, where he played a career high 67 games. So, I mean, his MO was out there. There's no secret about what Caruso brings to the table, and how difficult he can make it for opposing teams and opposing guards on a nightly basis.
Yeah, very good points. Obviously, when we look at Caruso's stats as a whole, this season, I think what really stood out to me was not just the fact that he averaged pretty much 1.5 steals a game, along with, if you round it up, a 0.7, round it up to around 1 block a game, which is pretty good for a guard per se. I think what's also fascinating to me is that his defensive rating, along with his offensive rating this year, went up. His offensive rating went up from 110 to 112 this year, and his defensive rating went up from 106 to pretty much 107. So you're telling me, from a rating perspective, one, he's pretty much fantastic either way. But two, the fact that he took his defense to another level from an efficiency perspective shows me that he's a good representation or what it means to understand the details of defense, not just the actual performance itself.
Yeah.
Obviously we know what we see on the court, the hustle, the aggression, the willingness to pick up guys full court, talking on the defensive end. That's the things that we know of Alex Caruso and we see of Alex Caruso. But when you think about the defensive component that's additional to that, it's also talking to his teammates. It's also communicating. It's also when you do a closeout, you don't just go flat-footed. You go, in your tippy toes in a certain way where you create the angle to stop the defender. Those are geometrical measures that, one, I failed at because I do not like geometry. But two, at the end of the day, they're necessary when it comes to perfecting your craft on both ends of the floor. And that's what Alex Caruso has shown this year through this selection. I mean, we all knew that he was a great defensive player, and so it doesn't surprise me per se that he's on these defensive teams. We knew this was something that could come, but it's a testament for the fact that when you talk about the total point depth that you just described, like you said, his presence is known around the league now, where he's known as a defensive stopper, and he's also known as someone that is valuable if you truly need some defense in your lineup, which, hint on hints, may be for next year. We'll see. We'll see what the Bulls do. But I think this definitely shows that the value of Alex Caruso is immense on the defensive end for sure.
Yeah, and I think the eye test and the numbers, they align, for the most part. According to the Pro Basketball Analysis site Dunks and Threes, this dude had the best estimated defensive plus minus in the league, better than Jaren Jackson, better than all of the other, or each of the other two Defensive Player of the Year award nominees. Like, he put in work, man. He really did. And I think that's owed to just his MO and his makeup, but then also to the off-season work he put in, working on his core and his lower body, to put himself in a position to play the amount of games that he did. I think one of the things that is really impressive about him coming into this season, or before this season, his best defensive field goal percentage was 43.8%. That was actually in his first year in the league, a season in which he only played 37 games. This past season, he was at 44.4%. And like I said, he played a career high 67 games. So, I mean, almost double the amount of games and still putting forth that type of effort and really kind of containing guys on the perimeter and making it tough for them, making life difficult. I mean, this is the NBA. The guys in this league, a lot of them make their bones on the offensive end and putting the ball in the basket. It's only so much you're going to be able to do. But if you can make life hell for them as much as possible, I mean, that's a lot of times, oftentimes, all you can ask for. So guys like Alex Caruso and Drew Holiday and Dylan Brooks, who got a second team nod, who is kind of getting drugged a little bit unfairly. Those guys are extremely valuable in this day and age where pick and rolls are so prevalent, and teams are seemingly, especially in the playoffs, doing more to attack like pressure points of their opponents. Like, guys like that, man, to your point, they're very valuable. There's a reason why allegedly the Warriors were interested in trying to get Caruso before the trade deadline. So, there's I think an argument to be made for Caruso being not only an MVP of the Bulls, at least this past season, but then also talk about maybe he could fetch you something that could help you next season in terms of trying to get some more shooting around whoever's left on this roster after this offseason period.
I'm glad you brought that up because we definitely don't know what our tourist screen service is going to do. However, that was something that was on the table, like you just mentioned, during the trade deadline, where, the Bulls dangled him a little bit to see what was out there. And didn't trade him, obviously, but, the fact that they listened to offers for him was very intriguing, knowing that this was someone that honestly outside of Lonzo Ball, the first player that the Bulls actually brought in from free agency when in that first free agency period with Arturas Karnisovas and Mark Eversley fully had the reins of the team. So it was interesting how they were able to, be so willing in some cases because they know what Alex Caruso brings to the table to see what's out there and see what you could dangle for him. And not necessarily players per se, but just draft capital, which was reported. I was actually very interested to see, why they dangled him compared to other people. But that's neither here nor there because now we're here and we're going to see obviously what this offseason is going to bring for the Bulls and what's going to happen with this roster remain to be seen. And one of the things that I also want to acknowledge about Alex Caruso that we didn't get a chance to do was obviously if you look at the stats right now, he's not top 10 in these categories anymore because players continue, into the postseason playing and things of that sort. But when you think about the regular season, for the most part, for most of the year, Alex Caruso was top 10, if anything, top 3 in a lot of cases for not just defensive efficiency per 36 possessions, but deflections, which shows the activity that he brings to the Bulls perimeter defense, the importance of being a defender and not just help side, but also being able to hold your own, have deflections, get steals. And he was actually one of the biggest reasons as to why in a lot of cases the Bulls, when they did have a transition game, was effective in the transition game. He will often lead those breaks through his defense. So because of the fact that is now being notarized in such a way, I know Arturas Karnisovas is sitting back there smiling like, yeah, we got this dude. I'm glad we got this dude. That's my son. Like he's looking at right, that's my son out there doing his thing. But and it's something that the Bulls needed. So in a lot of ways, this justifies to me the Bulls' direction and what they're looking for. Versatility is on offensively but defensive end, which is in some cases within the role that Alex Caruso was made to play in. He has performed in that role. However, like you said, there's other question marks that remain to be seen. And because there's so many question marks, I want to ask you this question. We know defense, in a lot of ways for the Bulls, especially the second half of the season, wasn't much of an issue. They actually was top 5 in defense. So so obviously we know Patrick Beverley was there at the time. Alex Caruso was helping lead the charge. But no P-Bev. But you do have a couple Bulls players that technically right now are on the roster. We don't know what's going to happen with them. But what does this mean, Drew, for guys like Io if he stays? Guys like Kobe if he stays? Dalen Terry if he stays? And even guys like Javonte Green. What does this type of nod and presence in the locker room actually mean for those guys who to me have a good chance of really taking more of the defensive role in their skill sets compared to the offensive end? Like, talk about what does that mean and impact, and how could it impact those players within your locker room?
So I kind of look at your question in different ways. I think in one way is just if a lot of those guys are still on the roster, it will continue to help the development on the defensive side of the ball and getting better and being able to learn from and watch Alex Caruso on a daily basis, whether it be in practice or in games. I think that's an invaluable asset that's available to them. But then also, I don't think any of those guys, except for maybe Kobe White, because he offers something that none of those guys can, which is the ability to shoot the ball from deep, which has been beaten to the ground about how badly this team needs more three-point shooting. But, the Ios, the Dalen Terrys, those guys are going to be behind Caruso, depending on how this roster looks come next season. Javonte Green, I think that because Derrick Jones Jr. has a player option, and things can happen, but he's already, I think, said that he's going to opt into that. I think that makes Javonte Green kind of, expendable. Because him and Derrick Jones Jr. are very similar type players. They're not really counting on them for offense. They're more so the high motor guys on this team who can come in and give certain lineups a jolt. They can play up certain positions in certain situations. So I think Javonte has probably seen his last days as a Bull, unfortunately. He's given his all here the last couple of seasons, and he's been a joy to watch. But in terms of Dalen Terry and Aldo Sumu and Kobe White, I think they're still kind of behind Caruso. If anything, Kobe White, maybe you see him playing alongside Caruso a little bit, just because of his own strides that he's made as a basketball player and a defender, and just being able to play the game at more of a concentrated pace and not kind of letting things speed him up too much. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. And again, everything kind of goes back to Nikola Vucevic and what happens with that situation. Once that domino falls, then we can kind of see where the rest of the chips fall too.
No, those are very good points. When I asked the question, I guess my mindset was, if you're going to have Alex Caruso stay here in Chicago, because this is his last year on his deal, you got him staying here, him being a guard and being in that guard locker room, you could per se, that's going to be, like you said, another year of development for those young guys, whomever is the ones that are staying the most, which at this point, from being reported, most likely is going to be Kobe and Dalen. So between those two, you already got Dalen that's already aggressive defensively. He got that dog in him. You can't teach that. So having that dog combined with the expertise that Caruso can bring, I think is only a additional boost for Dalen Terry, because we know the offensive skills is going to eventually come down the road. He doesn't have that right now. So his best chance of getting into a game is if he's going to be that spark plug defensively. He's aggressive, which he's shown that he can do that. But with having more of that presence with Alex Caruso, them going at each other in practice like that, come on now. I think that would just make him that much better.
Oh, yeah.
And, I agree with you as far as Kobe White probably playing alongside more with Caruso than anything, because of the makeups of their skill sets and how they can fit. But I think that defensive intensity can be contagious. And I don't only want that intensity to be trickled down to Dalen Terry. I want it to be trickled down to Zach LaVine. I want it to be trickled down to the stars. I also want to be trickled down to guys. And obviously we know the future is, in a lot of ways, is uncertain for Javonte. But Javonte, like Alex Caruso at one point during the season, them two together were the top 3 or 5 players in the deflections list. They both were aggressive. They both were tenacious. And they both brought a defensive spark and presence that really, like you mentioned before, jolted this Bulls defense and offense, especially in the transition game. And that's why Javonte was so good. He was able to not only help you defensively, but good luck trying to stop him in transition. It's going to be Live City. So, because of that, if he were to not return, that's going to be a big loss for them and for the Bulls in that realm. And hopefully you can replace that with a Derrick Jones Jr. that could actually play. This will have an opportunity to have more minutes in that realm. But I think for me, the biggest thing to highlight is the fact that you got this type of defensive intensity. It's time to boost this to the next level now. There's so many defensive issues and concerns at points during the season last year. And Alex Caruso was showing you that individually, the man can do it. But at the end of the day, it takes 5. It's a team. It takes 5 players on the court to get it done. So anytime you're playing with Alex Caruso, you should be on your P's and Q's 24/7, because he has shown that this is what he knows what it takes to become all defense in this league and what it means to be a superb defensive talent. Yeah. So I just hope that trickles down to the rest of the Bulls, especially those young guys that are in that guard locker room, because that's going to need to carry on when he's not on the court. And we saw last year how there's a lot of ups and downs in that perimeter defense, especially before Patrick Beverley came in.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a little bit of a drop off for sure when you go from Caruso to the other guards on the team in terms of point of attack defense and um, just defensive IQ. But again, like we talked about, the Bulls were fifth in the league in defensive rating at 111.5 um, last season. With Caruso on the court, that was 106.5. So they're even 5 points stingier. So um, defense, obviously, they need to be able to turn teams over and get out on a break and play against teams whose defense is not set yet. That we know that helps them out a lot because their own half court offense, for whatever reason, just has not been as advertised with guys like Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, and Nikola Vucevic on the floor. You would expect them to be able to fill it up a little bit more than what they have, but they just have not been able to do that. So being able to get out in transition is extremely important. But the main thing for this team, man, more so than defense, is offensively, getting shooters around the big three. If the big three is still here, come the start of next season, that is really the main objective. I think that 3 point shooting ideally would come from the point guard position. If they can find a way to grab somebody who's worthwhile, like a Tyus Jones from Memphis, who, as we talked about before, is like everybody's favorite backup point guard. I think you could do much worse than bringing him in as kind of a stopgap or a replacement for Lonzo Ball.
Yeah, that's true. Lonzo Ball, when he got here, was shooting over 40% from the 3 point line before he got hurt. So that was something that became a huge loss for the Bulls, obviously. But even Alex Caruso, he did improve his 3 point jump shot this year from 33% last year to 36 this year. He's still needing the idea. He's a career around I want to say a career 40% 3 point shooter. So we want to obviously get back to that type of level with him on the court. But because he's such a good three and D guy, um, for Bulls fans, you can have a little bit more hope that can trickle down from a veteran presence to the young guys that the Bulls have made it known they want to keep and they want to build and develop. So obviously, let's hope that's the case. Again, Alex Caruso is one of the first Bulls in a long time to get that award. I don't even want to go into see what that stat is looking like. I know it's been that long.
He's the first player since Jimmy Butler
Yeah,
in 2015, 2016, just to get an all defensive team nod. And the first player since Joakim Noah in 2013, 2014 to get a first team nod. If
yeah,
I'm not mistaken, yeah.
yeah. See, it's been a long time, Bulls fans, and we got a little bit of hope that we got that type of caliber person on our team. I don't want to go into Jimmy Butler because that's a whole nother story.
Man.
With what he's doing right now, good lord. But anyways, that being said, Bulls fans, enjoy this. Alex Caruso, first team all defense. Congratulations to him. Well deserved. Let's hope that continues that type of effort trickles down to the rest of the Bulls as we prepare for the upcoming season. That being said, obviously, thank you for tuning in to Bulldoze. We got some more Bulldoze episodes coming your way. And don't worry, we will always bring the heat. Always bring the heat. Drew Stevens, Josh M. Hicks, signing off. It's us.